several weeks ago, but let me just say this. I'm in the 39th day of my 50-day birthday cycle, where all the power things happen to you within 20 days prior to your birth date and 30 days thereafter. Well, I'm 39 days. I got 11 days to go, and then I go back to a regular, being a regular person, being a regular me. And, of course, I will be approaching this coming Sabbath, the 5th of 49 Sabbaths, where we all have band together to pray for a sevenfold increase in our lives, economically, morally, ethically, spiritually, and otherwise. Not only that, but if we could increase our brain cell use power by 7% of where we presently are in our brain cells and our understanding, we'd go right past the disease called Alzheimer's or any other kind of degenerative diseases, dementia and others that take over people who don't use their brains as actively as often as they should. So 7% brain. So we'll on this coming Saturday at the Pulpit of Power, we will be again focusing on the sevenfold increase of our lives in so many different ways. I raised the question by way of a prayer publicly before Almighty God in the possibilities of increases, that he would let me understand the mysteries of the nation of Egypt during the time of the pharaohs and during the time that the pyramids were built and during the times when the Jews were slaves in Egypt, and Joseph was there as an advisor to Pharaoh, and Moses later born there and then became the liberator of the Jews. But there are a number of mysterious things that happened in Egypt Moses did not write about. So I asked the Lord, because I'm a son of Ham, I'm a Pharaoh, well, I'm a Pharaoh's son. I'm a son of Ham, the dark-skinned, kinky-haired people. I'm a Hamite. And so I asked the Lord in prayer a few weeks ago if he would allow me to come to the knowledge and the understanding of what went on in Egypt, many of the things that Moses did not tell us about. And what I want to do today is demonstrate to you unequivocally an answered prayer in real time. And what I'm going to share is not all of what I believe God will give to me to share with you, but it will certainly demonstrate that God has answered at least a segment of that prayer. And basically, let me just cut right to the chase. That what God has given to me about the mysteries of Egypt, me being a son of Ham, a son of a Pharaoh, though I love Jesus, washed in his blood, talked to him in that prison cell back in 1976 in the Brooklyn House of Detention, been preaching righteousness ever since. But my father Ham settled Egypt. What Almighty God has shown me is that the resurrection that Jesus, that has been the crowning jewel and the most powerful aspect of what we refer to as Christianity, that the resurrection and the process of being buried in a tomb is not a Jewish law or principle or practice, nor is it a Christian law, principle, or practice. But the idea of being buried in a tomb and then resurrected is an Egyptian theological religious practice that Jesus adopted and incorporated as a part of his mighty walk upon planet Earth and as a part of his, if you will, development of salvation for all by the power of his blood through his death on the cross. And then he was placed in Joseph's tomb. And the Bible says it was a new tomb. Nobody had ever used it before. And then he was resurrected. Well, the pyramids, my brothers and my sisters, are tombs, elaborate, albeit as anything can be elaborate. But the functional purpose the immediate functional purpose of the pyramids in Egypt was to be a burial tomb for the pharaohs, for the kings. That was their immediate functional purpose, to be a burial, a tomb is what it was. And of course, beyond that, long before Jesus, long before Moses, long before a lot of things, long before the writing of the Pentateuch or the 5 books of the Bible or any of the prophets, my father Ham had already instituted the idea of resurrection. So therefore, tombs were built for the kings. Now, these were not for common people. They were simply for the kings, for the pharaohs. And these tombs were built, and pharaohs began to build their tombs even before they died, long before they died, knowing that the resurrection was a part of the Egyptian theology, that they would be resurrected. And along with that, and so when Jesus was placed in a tomb, and then 2 days, 3 days later was resurrected, that is not something you find in the writings of Moses. It is not anything that Jewish or Hebrew or Shemite people can claim as a theological precedence that they have established. No, sir. No, sir, read Bob. So the concept of even the resurrection itself is Egyptian. The first to practice it as an application post-death, the first people to practice were the Egyptians. And they built these elaborate tombs called pyramids to fundamentally give foundation and place for a resurrection. That every pharaoh that was placed inside of the Egyptian tombs, or pyramids, it was understood that he would be resurrected. Now, of course, the resurrection process and the tombs built in Egypt were a part of a larger accumulation of religious and theological ideas by the Egyptians that we'll talk and discuss later about the sun god Ra. But Jesus amplified, validated the practice of tomb burial and the efficacy of resurrection. In fact, even before his death, he began to proclaim in John's Gospel, chapter 11, that I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. So my asking Jesus, going back a few weeks ago when we first got started with the 49 Sabbaths, if he would let me have this knowledge, seeing I am a bona fide, sure enough, son of a Pharaoh, though I'm saved and washed in the blood of Jesus. Now, don't get me wrong. That he has given the answer, because you didn't know that before. Most people never thought about it because sometimes the synopsis of our brain connection and our inquisitive operations within our understanding as we go forward will not allow us to probe. Nobody never asked, where did the practice of the resurrection come from? It wasn't a practice that Moses he commanded. Moses never commanded resurrection. I'll go you one better. Moses never commanded baptism that John the Baptizer instituted. Now, again, this is not a changing of the law. This is not a saying that you don't have to do this because of baptism, or you don't have to do that because of resurrection. Neither baptism nor resurrection were Jewish or Mosaic or legal or commands of God. Neither of them. We'll go to the baptism later, but right now we're dealing on the resurrection and the fact that you now know, and I've told you, that the first people to practice the resurrection were the Egyptians, my father, the Pharaohs, Ham. That is knowledge or answered prayer in real time. Because you didn't know that, neither did I. But it is a sign that God has answered the prayer request I made to want to know about the great mysteries of Egypt. God's given us that one, and one that's very easily adaptable to, that is to say, because the resurrection is a powerful move in the Christian idea. We celebrate it as, they call it Easter. Others have gone ahead and been more accurate about it and call it the resurrection. But the very fact that you are now learning that Jesus did something that was Egyptian. When Joseph of Arimathea, who the Bible also indicates was one of the disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ, begged the body of Jesus that he might put Jesus into a tomb, a new tomb that he had, was the tomb that Jesus was put in was not as elaborate as the pyramid tomb, but it was symbolic of the pyramids of the pharaohs, all put inside of tombs. Now, general Egyptian history will let you know that even in the Great Pyramid of Giza, the tomb that the pharaohs were placed in were in a labyrinth of, if you will, of ways to get to that particular burial place where the tomb itself was found, where the body itself was finally placed. And then there was a mathematical diagonal, if you will, escape route that would lead out of the very crest and top of the pyramid that the resurrected Pharaoh would make his escape to. But he had to wait for the right time, whether it was the right time for the earth itself to align with the resurrection powers of the heaven of the stars. Let me share this with you. The Nile River runs from south to north. Water does not run uphill, but the Nile River does. One of the mightiest, massive bodies of water on planet Earth runs uphill. Water doesn't run uphill. Balls don't roll uphill, my attorney said to me the other day. But the Nile River does. Yeah. The Nile River runs uphill. The Nile River starts at Lake Tana in Ethiopia and runs north, uphill, and empties into the Mediterranean Sea. Water doesn't run uphill. Why is that important? It's important because the pyramids are built along the Nile, the mighty, mighty Nile River. And the reason why the Nile River runs uphill, thank you, Mr. Engineer, the reason why the Nile River runs uphill is because it's at a significant, if you will, cosmic, if you must, region of planet Earth that has a balance that is so very sensitive that it can cause water to run uphill. Why is that important? That's important because the pyramids that are built along the Nile River at a certain time will align with the heavenly bodies. That is the stars or the outermost universe. And the pyramids were built with an opening through several labyrinths that would give an opening to the actual crest and the top of the pyramid, where the Pharaoh's body would be resurrected and would escape. Now, the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ was out of the tomb of Joseph. Several of us years ago, we actually went to that tomb. I wasn't necessarily impressed. Not that I'm not impressed with Jesus, mind you. I just wasn't impressed with the tomb. And I'm not sure they knew which one it was, quite frankly. But what I do find extraordinarily important is this, is that when Jesus finally ascended, he ascended in Acts chapter 1 at verse 8. He ascended from Mount Olivet, that he went straight up. Now, the theological beliefs that was so impressive and believable, the theological beliefs of the Egyptians that was so impressive and believable that they actually built the pyramid around their theological beliefs. And that the Pharaoh would be resurrected through that escape hatch at the very top of the pyramid. One other thing. So what we are witnessing now, whether you agree or not, and by the way, listen, you don't ever have to agree with me on anything I say. Let's be clear about what we can be clear about. You don't ever have to agree. You don't ever have to believe. My brother, my friend, you can do just whatever you want to do. I'm just the Lord's servant. I'm here teaching. I'm the messenger. If you want to refute me, you can do that if you like. There's somebody who wants to hear. So we're now witnessing answered prayer in real time. In other words, God Almighty, his name is Jesus, who has answered my prayer and told me that when he subjected himself to being buried in a tomb beyond the crucifixion, being hung on a cross, he subjected himself to being laid in a tomb and resurrected out of that tomb, that principle had long since been practiced by my father Ham as pharaohs. So it wasn't a new institution of an ideal. And that's that. That is truth. That is documented. That is clear. One other thing that comes as ancillary to that, and that is this, that the power of the resurrection is so sure. It is a sure thing for everybody. The power of the resurrection is so sure. It is such an extraordinary, powerful point of our theological beliefs that in order to incorporate and for the resurrection itself to be manifest, it allows and gives the understanding to build something as powerful as a pyramid. Let me try to explain to you what I mean. Let's say you got a princess, right? She's a delicate princess. She is a sought-after princess. And she is impregnated by the prince, right? And she has to make a long journey. And she has to make the journey through a treacherous forest, threatening waters, difficult terrain. But the princess must be delivered safely and delicately to her destination. So, because the princess has to be protected, then the craftsmen and the servants around her build an elaborate carriage, an elaborate way for her to travel with cushions and metal and protections from all elements, from rain and from heat and from storm. And then she's put in this elaborate carriage, and then she's carried through these very difficult times. See, the pyramid is an elaborate spacecraft. Well, no, let me not say that. Let me retract that. The pyramid is an elaborate, if you will, vessel that gives power not to the person being resurrected, but to the idea of resurrection itself. And the kings were placed in there to make sure that their journeys were successful. Jesus was resurrected. Jesus was placed in Joseph's new tomb, and he was resurrected from the Mount of Olives, Acts chapter 1, verse 8, to make sure that his journey was successful. So we're witnessing God answering my prayer and you hearing it answered in real time. That was just prayed 3 weeks ago. That the resurrection itself was not a law written by Moses. Now, it's not against the law of Moses, but it goes back to demonstrate that Jesus himself adopted and practiced and gave validation to my father Ham and the pharaohs and the pyramids by demonstrating, allowing his body to be put in the tomb the same way the pharaohs allowed their bodies to be put in the tomb, and then being resurrected out of the tomb the same way the pharaohs were resurrected out of the tomb. Nobody else ever practiced that except my father Ham, the pharaohs, until Jesus. Now it has become a worldwide phenomenon of the resurrection. I thought I would share that with you. I think it's important. That nobody's ever shared that with you. Nobody's ever, no, that now we now know at least why the pyramids were built. We knew that prior. We knew that they were tombs. That we knew. What we did not know is that Jesus giving, if you will, credibility and validation. We didn't know that. No Christian leader, nobody who has been a part of the Christian church or teaching or theology has ever taught you that. That knowledge has been locked and sealed away until God has revealed it to me. Because I'm a son of Ham. I'm a son of the Pharaohs. And I asked too, by the way. But this is a bit of a news blog we do looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.